with that were limiting the government, and now we're creating thousands of laws that limit the people. And so what we have now is we have, well, our candidates. You know, we've got presidential candidates, and both our presidential candidates are, you know, pretty close to what I'd call gun grabbers. And you say, well, gee, you know, Dan must be thinking that, you know, everybody should have a gun. I just think people would be a lot more polite when they met each other. And I think that they'd be a lot more respectful. And I think, of course, there'd probably be a lot less crime. Everybody thinks of the Wild West as, quote, the Wild West. And if you read about it, you'll find out that, you know, there weren't bank robberies every day. And these guys didn't come riding into town and hooping and hollering and shooting up in the air and, you know, scaring everybody out of the town. You know why? Because when you were, you know, in the West, you'd be riding through a crossfire. Why? Because all these people had their money in that bank. And, you know, they took a keen interest. And many of them understood how to, you know, send out lead projectiles. So anyway, the Second Amendment. We did a show on the First Amendment. Let me go over just a little more history for you, and recent history, so you can, you know, you can look it up. Does anyone understand or know what happened in the country of Rwanda? Once again, they had gun control, didn't they? How about, are there any Armenians in the audience? When you look up and you find in history that the Ottoman Empire, run by the Turks, okay, they wouldn't even let an Armenian have a sharp object. You know, they started off, well, you got to register your guns. Then they said, well, we're going to confiscate all your guns because you Armenians are not allowed to have guns. And we know the word Holocaust, and we know the word genocide. Find out what happened to the Armenians by the Ottomans and how they could do it. And why was it that, once again, those people did not have the ability to defend themselves? So I know this may sound far-fetched, but you folks are going to have to learn from history that more people are dispatched by their own government. As hard as that may seem, you may sit back and think, my government's the best. I believe your former government is the best, but when you get criminals in it, you don't always get the best government. So what I'm trying to enlighten you with, okay, take a look. What happened to the Armenians and how they did it? Now, we'll go to Uganda. There's an African nation. You probably remember the name Idi Amin. How did he, you know, become this, you know, guy that was so bad and killed thousands and stuff? Thousands of people, once again. Thousands. And these were, once again, all these people were killed by their own governments. But how was it possible? Wow, he was into gun control too, just like Hitler, huh? Just like Stalin, just like Mao. Wow, what do these guys know? What have you learned about gun control? So are they using fear to control you now? So, okay, well, then we'll remember, gee, remember Cambodia? The person by the name of Pol Pot, who was responsible for killing a couple million Cambodians. And in his way, he could easily, you know, choose people because they wore glasses or spectacles. But what's the first thing he did? He didn't just say round up all the people with glasses. No, he said, everyone turn in your guns. So, once again, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Remember Katrina? Yeah, there was that big storm. And, gee, what happened during Katrina? Well, they decided that they were going to take the people, even in high and dry land, there in New Orleans, and they were going to go door to door and confiscate their guns. Now, once again, you know, you saw the idea of looting and all this, and I myself, I believe that was that was done on purpose. When I say done on purpose, that lack of response was on purpose. But they actually used, you know, the American military to go door to door and take people's guns. Now, one, it was conditioning the people that they, didn't have the right to keep and bear arms? And two, it was what? It was conditioning the military that they should go door to door and get used to going door to door and taking American citizens' guns when they need them the most. So then you find out, what's been going on in Illinois? You know, Chicago and Illinois is a very depressed place right now. What's the governor and the mayor, and what have they been up to? Maybe you want to do some research. So could I just be here telling you things that aren't true? Could I be sitting here telling you things that weren't important? You've heard me mention that torture is now allowed in the United States. Torture. And when I tell you that there constantly making efforts to remove your right and your ability to defend yourself, in this case with a firearm that's guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States. You probably feel you don't need one. You probably feel safe and secure, and that's fine. You know? Then I wouldn't, you know, I'm not going to force one on you. But you have to remember and learn from history. Because we who don't learn from history, we're going to see history repeat itself. And when criminals get into positions of power, even in the best of governments, they do criminal things. And when you see them doing the same things that previous criminals did, in the same sequence, in the same order, then you've got to consider that this is nothing new. You know, there was, for the Hebrew faith people out there, we had King David, right? And his son Solomon, I believe was his son. He said there's nothing new under the sun. And he was pretty much right. This is all history repeating itself. As we get lackadaisical, as we get lazy, as we don't defend our Constitution, as we don't defend our rights, as we don't defend the people that aren't allowed to speak, as we don't defend the people that are rounded up, as we don't defend the people who've had their firearms taken away from them illegally, okay, then what we're doing is we're inviting tyranny. Wow, so I have to tell you, I'm in this little town of Sharon, and I've got to get in your lens, and I've got to wake you up and say, hey, tyranny has a smell, it has a taste, it has a feel. And I'm trying to get you to wake up, sharpen your senses. Instead of dulling them, sharpen your senses. Does it feel like tyranny lately? When I say, where are your papers at the airport? Where are your papers? I'm going to treat you like a, you know. When I turn around, I say, well, I got to body scan you. Well, I got to have you take your shoes off. Well, you got to have 15 passports. Well, you need a passport to go between state to state in the United States now. Well, you need a passport to fly within the United States. Now you need a national ID. Should I go through the list? Okay? What point will you say, smells a little bit like tyranny's coming on? You know, it's like smoke before the fire. Okay? Here I am trying to get you off your derriere to say, you know what? Every now and then, effort needs to be put forth. I want to say eternal vigilance. The fact, and it's not just going to be me. And it's not going to be, you know, me and one other person. It's going to be you. It's going to be your family. It's going to be your neighbors. Who are going to what? Who are going to defend this Constitution? Who are going to what? Who are going to defend those who can't, you know, who are told you can't speak? When your manipulated media only shows you what? Let's go to the most recent thing. Okay, we just had our presidential debate. Hopefully you saw the last one. I don't know. It was, to me, maybe it wasn't worth seeing. I actually watched it. And for all you viewers out there, what were we both told? We were both told that, well, candidate one was gonna what? He was gonna create jobs, right? Yeah. Like the government's job is to create jobs. And candidate two, well, I'm gonna create more jobs. Oh, I'm gonna create more jobs, until finally they were gonna create so many jobs. Why do we have unemployment, right? Okay, because the government's gonna do everything for us. We're requesting tyranny when we allow our rights to be taken away. But okay, candidate one and candidate two. So candidate one says, well, I'm going to cut your taxes. Well, candidate two says, I'm going to cut your taxes. I'm going to cut them 5%. I'm going to cut them 15%. I'm going to cut them 95%. I'm going to cut capital gains. Get real. I mean, how old do you have to be to realize things like, I mean, these people just lie to you constantly. Okay? Oh, healthcare. The government's job is not your health. It's not healthcare. That's not the government's job. That's not what they're good at. Take a look at what they've done. They have not done the best thing for your health. Okay? I mean, are they the ones that said aspartame can go in your food? Are they the ones that say untested vaccines can, you know, get jabbed into your children? Okay? That heavy metals can be shoved into your children when they're healthy and young? So here's your two candidates, and they're doing this thing, and they're both promising you all this, and I'm going to, what, chicken in every pot? And meanwhile, both of them, if you look at their track records and what they've done, you know, they're slowly eroding your rights. And when that's done, you're losing those freedoms, folks. And what you've got to understand is, like I say, we're going to go through the Bill of Rights kind of one at a time. We did the first, now the Second Amendment. Why, once again, did our founders do this? Not for hunting. Everybody wasn't hunting back then, and you didn't, you know. No, because they just got rid of tyranny. And throughout history, once again, I'll remind you, there was a gentleman named Stalin. I don't know if he was a gentleman. There was a loser named Stalin. There was a loser named Mao. There was a loser named Adolf. Okay? There was a loser named Idi Amin. There was a loser named Pol Pot. Okay? You could go down through the list of history. All of them said, guess what? Register your guns. Oh, we got to round up your guns because it's an emergency. You know, when they pull the next 9/11, okay? Maybe some chemical 9/11. Well, you know, it was those white Al-Qaeda people, you know, those, you know, and they go knocking door to door.